On this episode, we talk about preparing for spring planting and making sure seed is delivered and secured on your farm. And don't forget to double check those wheat fields. We also talk about the differences between systemic and contact herbicides within the growth regulator family. Oh, by the way, did any of you see that Bud Light commercial?
Hi, this is Joe Mershman from Mershman Seeds. Welcome to Cup of Joe, episode number 15. Today we have Skip Long, our product manager, Turk Regulator, our general sales manager, and Ben Pieper, our company agronomist. Let's start with Turk today. What did you notice this week?
It's been kind of a slow week with the weather being what it has, and everybody's kind of hunkered down a little bit. But China has bought some soybeans this week. They were talking that 5 million metric tons per day, which was a mistake that the trade kind of assumed right off the bat. It's 5 million metric tons total, and as of yesterday, I believe it was, they were getting close to that 5 million metric tons. So they're doing what they said they were going to do in the latest round of trade negotiations. But look forward. I think we can look forward to more continued sales there. Otherwise, it's been kind of a slow week. I think. The other thing that I might suggest is farmers need to confirm that they're going to get the seed that they've ordered. Again, I think we talked about substitution time, and so right now, because of the lateness that we're having in the delivery period, this weather's kind of slowed things down a little bit. It's going to back things up a little bit and make it even tougher. So farmers should get their seed. Contact their seed supplier and make sure that they've got the seed and take delivery of that seed as soon as possible.
I agree with that, Turk. The logistics to get all the seed out, the right varieties, and the right bag size, and the right treatments. Just in our company alone, we have over 2,500 SKUs that we ship out, which is hard to believe, but those are all the different combinations that we can do seed in. So it's very critical, like you say, to confirm exactly what you're getting, to make sure you're getting, because I heard you say before we started this episode that you saw your first dead skunk. Well, last week, if you remember, we said you see your first dead skunk in the middle of the road, it could be only maybe 6 to 7 weeks away from planting. So we hope that's not the case, but it is not too far away.
It's going to be here before we know it.
Well, Skip, I know you've been working on a lot of things this past week. What have you been up to?
I've been doing a lot of the backside work, like getting plots ready, which I'd advise farmers to be thinking about. We had an extended fall harvest. A lot of limited fall work got done. So get them planters ready to roll. I mean, you've got a lot of other things that's going to have to be done this spring, and that's kind of what I've been doing. We're getting plots put together and get it in place so it's there when the guys are ready to go. So be double check, like Turk said, double check your seed, make sure you've got everything that you need, get it on order. We're not sold out of seed yet. So we have supply, so it's not like we have limited supply of anything. So, and this weather's really hindered our trucking department as far as getting loads to where they need to be. So when crunch time comes, you want to have it in place.
Yep.
Yeah, we're falling a little bit behind right now according to our goals. So and it's just mainly because of the extreme cold weather and the ice and snow. But hopefully we'll get back on track. But I definitely second that motion. Get your seed in place where you can see it, because you have to have it before you can plant.
Yep.
Ben, what do you have to report this week?
Well, there's a couple different things, and kind of carry on what you guys are talking about with the skunks and Puxatawny Phil. He didn't see a shadow, so spring's going to be here early this year. To add on to getting your planters ready, there are local planter clinics coming up around here in Southeast Iowa, and I'm sure there's in other places. Those are really, really good to get to. Learning how to set your planter is one of the most important things when it comes down to figuring out, your depth, your placement, your singulation, and all the things like that. So those are very important things to come.
I totally agree with you, Ben, because every year we go out on a certain number of complaints where they say, hey, the seed just won't plant. And obviously the farmer's thinking it's the seed, but when we get there and look at the planter, brushes or units or whatever, we find that there's some worn spots in it, and that's what the real problem is. So I agree, a little bit, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, and when it's time to plant, what'd you say, Turk, the other day, how much a planter's worth in the field?
$2,500 an hour.
Wow, that's significant investment.
Well, it's just mainly because of the fact that, if you don't get that field planted and you get 3 weeks of wet weather, there's a heck of a yield loss there potentially in planting time. So
these big planters can plant 200, 300 acres a day, and you figure do the math on that, and if you get behind and miss a day or two, the yield loss that can be associated with that, especially on corn, starts adding up in a hurry.
And Ben addressed a couple other things, planting depth and closure. I mean, soil to seed contact. I mean, that's why you need them planters ready to go.
And these planter clinics usually offers a discount for parts that are ordered at that too, so farmers can save a little money there.
Yep. I think they're absolutely key to go to. I think it's just the little things that remind guys that, oh yeah, this may be worn out, this may be worn out on my planter. It's time to get them out, because before you turn around twice, we're going to be here.
We started this with Kevin Kimberly years ago, didn't we, Joe?
yeah, we've had planter clinics in the past, and there's just so many minor details that you got to watch with a planter to get, because seed, number one, is expensive, and number two, you want to make sure it's at the right depth and the right spacing if you're going to maximize yield, and that's the first step. They always say, the yield goes down when you start pouring the seed into the planter, because things can go wrong after that, and it starts with the planter. So. And
the beauty of it is now you've got the implement dealerships with qualified people to help you. Where back when we first started it, we caught them completely off guard.
Yeah. Well, anything else, Ben, for me?
Well, the last thing I just want to talk about real quick is the again with the early spring that we're kind of halfway predicting is, once the green up starts to come, look at your wheat, figure out your stands as they're coming in. Make sure you got your sulfur and your nitrogen ready to rock and roll. Figure out your plan for what you're going to do for your winter wheat, because I really do think we're probably going to see a green up here before we turn around twice. So.
Yeah, the critical thing on wheat at green up is that's when the rapid cell multiplication is going. That's when your tillering occurs, right? And so you got to have that nitrogen right there when that tillering is starting to occur if you want to maximize yield. 1 head per square foot is 1 bushel.
Right.
So if you encourage tillering, that means more yield potential, but you've got to have that nitrogen there when that wheat starts to green up.
Yep, and if you didn't get your fall applied fertilizer on, your P and your K, do it as soon as you possibly can. So
I was by a field the other day just north of Mount Pleasant where the snow come off, and it was just as pretty green as you wanted it.
Yeah, so it's yeah, you're right. February's time to get that top dress on.
Yep.
Well, I got a couple things, and we'll start with this one here. This one here is put out by National Public Radio. Is fear driving the sales of dicamba soybeans? And very good article, in my opinion, written by Dan Charles about the fact that many farmers are switching to dicamba because of for defensive reasons rather than basically the technology, you might say. And we've witnessed this firsthand this year, where farmers have decided they were going to go with the LibertyLink GT27s, and then the neighbor says, no, I'm planting dicamba, and then the farmer's rethought his position, decided, well, I'm not going to get drifted on. I don't want to have all the problems. I don't want to have all the anxiety with my neighbor, so they switch. So this is probably one of the things that's keeping dicamba soybeans movement upward in sales potential. But this coming year, this will be what I call the transition year, because next year there's going to be 2 technologies that are going to be fully approved, we anticipating anyhow, and that'll be LibertyLink GT27s and with the elite herbicide which is basically the balanced chemistry, which is going to make weed control very effective in that early phases, and then you can come back with either glyphosate or glufosinate, Liberty or Roundup, either in combination or in any way that you want. That's the LibertyLink GT27s. That's going to give farmers, and again, there's no buffers, no borders. It's not a restricted use pesticide in any way. So that particular technology is going to be much easier than dicamba. And the other one is Enlist E3, which most of you know as a combination of glyphosate, glufosinate, and the new formulation of 2,4-D. And Enlist E3 acres, as we speak right now, we're amping up those acres. And of course, 2,4-D is a different type of growth regulator. It is one that is not systemic. So in other words, it's contact. So if there is movement, which we have not seen that in the last few years of doing it, we don't see it move more than a row, and it's physical and no volatilization issues. But the new growth that comes out from soybeans that have been touched with 2,4-D are fine. Where dicamba, it just keeps coming and coming and coming because of the systemic activity that it has. So I encourage farmers, as they think about 2020, to start looking at these new technologies that will give you different options and less complicated, much easier to use, and maybe talking to your neighbors now and say, hey, I'm going to go a different direction, and rightfully so in 2020, because of the fact that switching up your modes of action is always smart too, from the standpoint of keeping weeds under control. So if you want to read a good article, it's called "Is Fear Driving the Sales of Dicamba Proof Soybeans?" Written by Dan Charles. It's a great article to read about some of the problems that we have, and neighbors are actually having to plant it because of another neighbor. The last thing I'd like to talk about is just get you guys' opinion of the Bud Light Super Bowl commercial talking about not using corn syrup. And this week it's just been quite a disruption of a lot of posts on social media. Looks like farmers weren't too happy about that. Any comments from any of you?
I don't think it's anything new. I don't think that Bud Light's been using corn syrup at all for quite some time. So, again, I'm not a big beer drinker, so probably don't have a good comment. Ben, you can comment?
Oh, yeah, I agree with you. It's been brewed with rice for a long time. It was just a silly advertisement. I don't know why they would attack corn syrup the way they did. I don't know if it's looked at as a negative in the new social age that we're living in, maybe because of its high fructose and sucrose concept. They pulled it all out of all the
pops. I mean, so
yeah, it may have a negative view. It's just an absolutely silly thing to do because it has upset a lot of corn growers across the United States.
Well, it just goes to show the sensitive world we live in right now. It's just a lot different than what it used to be, but. I like my Bud Light once in a while, but I may have to change Coors now. So anyhow, that concludes our episode for this week. As always, thank you for listening and watching today. Thank you for being a Merchant Seeds customer, and we'll see you next week.